Peace and blessings. I'm doing a double live, both here on Instagram and Facebook. So, peace, peace. I'll give everybody a few minutes to join the live. I won't take too much of your time on this beautiful, beautiful Sunday, or depending on when you catch this replay. But it's a good time to be alive. It's a good time in our generation, 2020 year of vision, perfect vision, not just vision. And it's just so important that we kind of flip the script and, do something different. So the first thing I'll lead with, and feel free to comment, I'll be engaging you all. Again, what's up? Peace, Instagram, peace, Facebook. I see some people joining. What's one thing that you can think of that you outsource at least 75% of the time? One thing in your life, one element of your life. So let's say it's your nutrition. Everybody has to eat. Do you outsource that to restaurants or to a personal chef? What's another thing? Your laundry. Just think of things in your common everyday life that at least 70% of the time, 75% of the time, you completely outsource. You don't think twice about it. You don't question it. As long as you see that something is happening and you're getting the expected results in terms of, let's not overthink it. But what do you do? One thing that you outsource. And we'll come back and to that question in a moment. But for those of you who may not know me or may be new to following me, my name is Matanah Joy. Some of you may know me from my roots in the Midwest and Chicago. Some of you may know me from my work as a professional in various facets, but I've supported small businesses and entrepreneurs for nearly 20 years grow and expand their businesses as an employee, as a consultant, as a friend. It's just something that I've always done. Some of you may know me from my raw chef days here in Southern California. Peace and blessings, Brother Bing, El Yarib. It's been a long time. Blessings. Good to see your name. Hopefully we get to connect. Peace and blessings, everybody. But some of you may know me from, like I said, my personal chef services that I served here in Southern California. It's been about 4 years since I've actively done that full time. And, my purpose of going live today is to kind of share what I've been up to these last several years. And what I've been up to is being a very active and hands-on parent. Not that I haven't been that in my entire career as a parent, 20 years in the game, but I have had focused energy, hands-on, more than ever before in these last several years, and I'll tell you why. So my opening question to you guys was, what's one thing in your life that you completely outsourced? And for many of us, and I'm speaking specifically to parents of color, we outsource our children's education. Unfortunately, some of us 100%. Was education, if there's any parents in the room, was education one of the things that you thought of? Did you completely outsource your education, your child's education, to another system, to another person? And so this video is not shade. This video is not to make anyone feel excluded. This video is not a pro-homeschool conversation. But it's really to make my people just take pause and just think about it a little bit. What's up, Sister Elza? Perfect timing. We're talking about some things. The question to the room was, what's one thing in your life that you outsource at least 70%, if not completely? Some ideas was, your nutrition. Maybe you don't like to cook. Maybe you don't have time to cook and you outsource that. I outsource my taxes nowadays. Once upon a time, I used to do them myself. I trust my accountant, and so, I follow her lead, and I don't really think twice about it. There's some things that we double check to make sure that, we have, but with our education of our children, so many of us completely are hands off as long as they show up to school, as long as we see the report cards, that's our main concern. But what about the whole child? When we think about compulsory education in the United States, We're not taught when that officially started. And we're not taught, who are the people in the room to, create this compulsory education requirement. For those of us who, have a little bit of insight, we know compulsory education in America started in the early 1900s. And for many people of color, who I'm specifically speaking to, we obviously know that that system wasn't created with us in mind. The 1900s, 1900, 1915, I don't think that was, for us. And so for this country's many greats, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, this country's greats, someone taught them, and it wasn't in the form of compulsory education. And so another question, what do you think of when you think of a homeschooler or a homeschooling family? It's kind of like the idea of, plant-based living and being a vegan. The first thing someone says, well, how do you get your protein? And it's like, dude, are you concerned about my vitamins and minerals? Are you concerned about how I get my, vitamin C? Are you concerned about how I get, these other components that's so important? And so with homeschool, again, another rare thing, so how is the kid going to be social? And I posted a really funny post on my page. Check it out. It's hilarious. I love some memes out there. And it's like, I'm not going to live in a cave. And what I recommended in the caption was that if you ever have an opportunity to sit in a room full of homeschooled children, take the opportunity. It's a beautiful one. Peace and blessings, Lee. Long time no see. I trust you're well. And so it's just take a moment and look at these babies. And from my experience, I've been homeschooling for 3 years now for my daughter. And I have, some experience between raising a child exclusively in the public school system. And I have hands-on experience homeschooling my own child, my own daughter. And the differences between, they're beautiful children, and they're not a product of anything other than what we as parents invest in them. But when you can compare the difference between a child that's in a public school system and born and raised in the public school system, literally, because what is pre-K nowadays, 3 or 4? Why is it so important that, my 3-year-old or 4-year-old needs to get into pre-K, Head Start, ASAP? Like, what are they doing other than playing? Why is it so important to get our children out of our hands and out of our jurisdiction into someone else's hands, into someone else's system? And I think our ancestors would say, who have been unfortunately victims of colonization, I think a lot of our ancestors would look at us and say, what are you thinking? What are you thinking? And what are we thinking? So I think for me, I won't speak for everyone and all of you, but when you think of the word homeschool, what is the image that you see? I've been doing some branding over the last few days, and I was looking for some stock photos and images of homeschooling. Just put in the word homeschooling. And I had to scroll and scroll and scroll until I could find someone of color. So I know for me, I feel you, Lee. I know for me, the idea of homeschooling was, a white family, specifically a white mother, whose husband, hi Amanda, fellow homeschooler. And also, while I have you guys in the chat, if you homeschool actively, shout that out, because I honor you. If you are a parent who sends your children to public school, private school, Catholic school, but yet you are intentional about the time that you set aside to teach your child, whatever that is, shout yourself out as well, because this job as a parent is an awesome one. And it is not something that we get celebrated enough for. And it's something that, regardless of what you choose for your child or have chosen for your child as far as education is concerned, you are to be honored because your intention is that they are educated. And everyone that I know who have children, it's their passion and their 100% intention that their child receive an education that they didn't get. And if they did get a great education, they want their child to get that same standard of education, whatever that might be. So shout out to all the parents who are doing the work. Shout out to all the parents who have that beautiful intention. And it's just time to really take a moment and think about the things that keep us away from making homeschooling or making supplemental education of our children a priority. And so my passion is to really support homeschoolers, especially homeschoolers of color, because we feel so isolated. To go back to my question of what your vision of a homeschooling family looks like. And once again, I said my vision was a white woman, in a suburban home, a rural home, where her husband works outside the home making six figures. She doesn't have to worry about rent. She doesn't have to worry about a mortgage, a car note. She doesn't have to worry about grocery bills. Her job and primary function is to raise and teach her children every single day. And that is her only focus. Imagine, to the mamas in the room and to the fathers, to the mothers, can you imagine waking up every day and that's your number one focus and not someone else's career or someone else's company, rather, your career? And there's nothing wrong with women having a career. Let me just get that out there. And that this tea that I'm sharing, this medicine that I'm sharing is not necessarily going to resonate with you. And that is okay too. But my purpose of going live, because y'all know I don't go live, my purpose of talking about this is just so that we as parents of color can just think about it a little bit more, the importance and the significance of the education that our children receives. And not only the education that they receive, but really taking into consideration the whole child. Because our child is not just to be taught arithmetic and language arts and writing and literature. They're also to be tapped into and cultivated and shaped emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically. How many A students, I was an A student all through school, and just in homeschooling my child, I had to realize how colonized my thinking was in relation to education. Sad, and I just thought, okay, I have to teach her what homeschooling looks like versus public school, because she attended public school for 2 years. And as I was reading this book, which I'll share with you later, as a matter of fact, if you visit my website, Matanah Joy /subscribe, just launched. We're cultivating a community. But if you follow me there, and if you're on Facebook, join our Facebook group, we have to connect with one another. The number one thing I hear from parents of color is, how do I even do this? I don't have a degree. I hear, how can I afford to do this? I don't make enough money. I work full time. We are in a system where our schools become our daycares, our babysitters. And hey, I had to do that all of my 20s with my firstborn. So there's no shade here. There's no judgment here. But the key is, in my opinion, is activating our families and activating our communities, right? Because with an activated family and an activated community, it's not one person teaching a child. It is a village, right? It takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to teach a child. And in this society, we're isolated, right? I don't know any other culture where we have to be so separate and so divided, and it becomes harder to do the things that we're naturally called to do. So as men and women, we each need to bring in a salary. I live in Southern California. In many places around the United States, you have to do that. So how can we get creative? And so my mission, this year in 2020, with this clear vision, this perfect vision, and I call this out for all of you all, is to tap into the things that you know to be truth, the things that you have tangible evidence of, that we can all do better, that we all can focus on a little bit more, that will cultivate and create and bring about and manifest change. And so the number one factor for me personally is our babies. Our babies need us, and we all know that. But our babies need us in a way that I don't think not everyone really sees and can feel and it can resonate with. They need us. And so if you're dealing with, if you know a child in your family who is, was thriving academically and now they're not, if they're these peaceful children and now they're not, if they wake up in the morning and they're just begrudgingly, most kids are begrudging to get, they don't want to put on the clothes and get ready for the day. They want to chill. So that's natural, but let's just pay attention to our children and how they feel when they're going to school and when they're coming home from school, and ask the key questions, not how was your day, but how do you feel? Are you excited about learning? And then just that supplemental piece comes in, and it's like, how do we teach our children critical thinking skills? How do we teach our children how to apply what we're learning in the classroom in the real world setting? Because that's a common complaint about children, is like, how do I apply this to the real world? And that's a very valid question. And so we lose a lot of children in the educational system because they just don't get it. And I always talk about my experience in college, like comparing school systems, originally from Chicago. And so I spent my freshman year doing observation hours, but in my head, I'm comparing the school system. And I went to the west side of Chicago, in this huge, dark, gloomy school where the kids just looked so small and so out of place. And then I also, did observation in Naperville, where I attended my private college, and it's an affluent, environment, and, where I had to speak on behalf of the Black race as a baby growing up on the south side of Chicago without the exposure to do so. And so what I did see, though, was one thing. Not only, we're not even talking about curriculum, which we could talk about for hours and days, but I'm talking about just the environment, the school. That school in Naperville was so bright, proportioned to the child, colorful, with smiling teachers greeting them. And they felt like this was their space. They're supposed to be there. Now, public school is public school, but just imagine the environment. Your environment for learning is so important. It's like when you get to work and you have, or your studio, because I know there's musicians in the room, wherever your workspace is, if it's full of clutter and the energy is, you're not feeling motivated to do anything. So imagine a young child, hungry, not feeling the support. Mom and dad had to run to work before they went to school, right? And they're in school hungry, and the first thing they see is a angry teacher that don't want to be there either. So what is going to make them feel like they, want to be there and should invest the energy into receiving whatever this teacher is teaching them? So there's many, many, many points that we can make in terms of like why we should homeschool, or, the process of selecting a good school, a good education. But as parents of color, I just want us to just take a second and think about our babies and, just reprogram our thinking and our vision of what homeschooling is. And like I mentioned, that vision of what I thought homeschool was in my 20s, I never even considered that I could homeschool. Never even considered it. And so why is it not a consideration for us? Why is it not even a thought? Number one, it's not something that's common. And so what I teach my children is, if it's common, if it's common in mass, widespread, you may want to reconsider. If you're the only one in the room thinking different and doing something different, it's probably a good thing. And so let me bring it back in, because I can go for a while on these various pieces. But what do you outsource 75% or more? We're outsourcing our child's education with just check-ins here and there. Let's think about that. We're outsourcing our child's development to a system that unfortunately has not always supported us. It's the same system that we're pleading with to stop violent shootings in the street of the fathers of these babies and the mothers of these babies. And if we can't get a system to understand the issue with that, how can we expect the same system to teach our children all of the values and all of the pieces that they need? How can we expect that? And like I said, I think our ancestors might look at us a little crazy, like, you let them with your child 7 hours a day, 5 days a week for 12 years, 12, 14 years. So it's just something to think about. And so I want to support all the people of color out there who are considering homeschooling. I want to shout out to all homeschoolers, period. This is not an exclusion of anybody, but I know I can speak to my community, and I know I can speak to the lack in our community and our education, and I can look at the babies that I've seen over time that are at the gas station getting red 40 sugar drinks and Flamin' Hot Cheetos for breakfast. And so another component to this is activating our community. Where are the uncles, the aunts, the cousins, the grandparents who may be underemployed or retired that can stand out on their porch and watch these babies go to school so they can stop getting snatched up? You know, where are the unemployed young folks? I have a 20-year-old who's in school and he has ample time on his hand and he's had part-time work. But these type of young folks in our communities need to be activated. You can sit and listen to your baby sister read. You can sit and read a book to your cousin. You can make sure this child gets from A to B. We have to activate our villages. So by creating the online group, I am not necessarily a proponent of Facebook, but I use Facebook. Let's see what happens to this live on Facebook that I'm recording over here. But I am a part of it more so now because there's so many homeschoolers and so many groups of homeschoolers, especially of color, who are looking desperately for community. They're looking desperately to see themselves homeschooling, you know, that they're not alone. And so I'm in an isolated environment in Southern California. I'm just now getting into some, you know, getting to know other homeschool families. But in terms of my daughter being able to see herself, it's few and far between. But she's able to see herself in a spiritual way with the beautiful children that she connects with in her cooperative space. So it's the spirit that gives life, it's not the race. However, we're speaking about people of color who just need to be empowered. We need to be empowered and realize our power and our responsibility as the first teachers of our children. Because somewhere along the line, we were taught that we are unable to teach. The children have come from our wombs, and I just don't understand that. So if the Most High, the Creator, universe, you know, blesses you with bringing life into this world, both male and female, you're cultivating and bringing life into this world. Do you really think you're unable to teach the child? To have a master's degree in education is great, but can you teach your kindergartner how to read if you can read? The number one thing I've learned so far with homeschooling is you have to have a mindset as a parent, you have to have a mindset of ever loving to grow. So, and to learn. And so I can't tell you how many lessons I sat down to teach my child, and I had to have a refresher. And better yet, maybe it's a topic that I was never taught. Or maybe I was only taught part of the truth and not all of the truth. Or worse, a distorted and rewritten truth. You know, the glory, what is the proverb? The glory of the hunter will always go to the hunter, not the lion, right? I didn't paraphrase, I didn't quote that right. But you feel what I'm saying? So it's like, I teach my child, when, oh my goodness, last year, 4th grade history, California history. I'm just gonna go ahead and pop my collar on that one because she's gonna be able to test out if she was ever tested in this, you know, in this system, and she's gonna know the real deal of what happened to natives in this country. She's gonna know the real deal of what happened right up the street in Santa Barbara. She's going to know the real deal. And so that's the supplemental education piece I'm saying. If you're not able to homeschool, let's supplement our child's education with the pieces that's going to make them a whole and well-rounded person. The purpose of compulsory education in the United States was to create a very manageable citizenry. So how do we get these citizens to be manageable? So we have a consistent output. If my family is raising my children one way and your family is raising your child another way, and that family is changing, can you imagine trying to manage that? As managers at your job, you have different people with different, you know, work ethics and different walks of life and different experiences and all this. And it's hard to manage a whole bunch of grown folks. So imagine trying to manage millions of children who are coming into adulthood with 20 years of education under their family. So with that being said, here's the sweet stuff. Let's make it light again. First of all, again, shout out to the parents. Shout out to all the wonderful parents, all of us who are intentionally raising our children, being mindful of what they're receiving and being excited about learning with them. So here's a challenge. Tomorrow is MLK. For those of us who are blessed enough to have the day off, let's have a homeschool hour with our children. And let's pretend that we're in that perfect world. For those of us who are not homeschooling, who feel like it's impossible, let's have a homeschool day if you can. But an hour. I have resources in my Facebook group. Actually, after this live, I'll be sharing it. resources for MLK, for elementary school age babies. On my website right now, you'll be able to find at least 5 or 6 websites that give you free worksheets, free lesson plans that you can go in. Of course, there's paid ones too, but for the most part, you can start with those free ones and just feel the invigoration of teaching your own baby and seeing their eyes lighten up. It's a beautiful thing. Is it hard? Yes. Right, Amanda? To all the homeschoolers, it's not easy, but I can't tell you how rewarding it is as well. And so my goal this year is not only to change the preset of what a homeschooling family looks like, but also to give support of people of color who want to homeschool their children. And I understand where it might feel impossible, but in that same space, there's nothing but possibility if you change your mindset. In a 7-hour school day, most children are really actively learning for about 3 to 4 hours. In most states, every state is different, and I'm speaking about elementary school age right now, specifically because that's my child's, demographic, but 4 hours of education a day is ample. How many hours does your iPhone say you was online a day or this week? If you can say at least 2 hours of screen time, you've got 2 hours of education done right there. And you got a grandmother, a grandfather, a cousin who can spare an hour here and there. 20 hours in a week, you've homeschooled your child. So is it easy? No. Is it possible? Absolutely. And once you get into the possibility and the rhythm and you build the momentum and the practice, it does become easier, right? We know that evidence is all around us in life. So with that being said, for those of us who want to accept the challenge and do some MLK activities, I welcome you to come on over to the Facebook group. If you're not on that Facebook, send me a DM. We can communicate that way. I'll share those resources with you. On the website, matanahjoy.com, are already free websites just for you listening and visiting. Let's continue to build this tight community and let's see ourselves in one another. Again, this is for every parent of color who has an intention on giving their children the best start. My passion and my goal is to help us reclaim our power and responsibility as the first teachers of our babies. Because there is something that you see in a child's eye when you teach them. It is something that you see in their presence and their countenance when they know that you are their educator, and that's not being deferred to anyone else. It's a beautiful and powerful thing, and it brings you and your children closer together. So not only am I trying to support families of color to not only feel empowered enough to homeschool, but because I have a background in business and because I have worked in those fields for so long, supporting entrepreneurs, I'm currently in the e-commerce marketing space, and I would love to help people of color. Let's talk about what gifts and skills you have that you've always said you wanted to start a business. Let's create the streams of income that will give us the ability to feel more able to homeschool. So I don't want to say go out and do this and not give you the fruit that you need to help you do it. So spread the word, share this video, share the website, share the Facebook group, whatever you feel moved to do with people that you know who are in the same space of just trying to figure it out. There's so many parents that are like, my child was so smart, according to the grades, right? And that's another thing, good student, bad student. But anyway, I know for a fact that someone in your community whose son or daughter is struggling in school. I know someone in your community, in your neighborhood, in your family, whose son or daughter is emotionally dealing with some stuff. Maybe there's so many children nowadays with diabetes and with asthma and with all these issues, and they're out of school. It's hard to pay catch up when you're out of school several days a month, or a couple days a week, every week. Let's make the smart move. And let's start relying on one another. And I know we have to be careful with our children, with people out here in the community, right, that we don't know. But I'm talking about the people who are verifiable, the people that you know, the people that you trust. We have to start working as a collective, especially the sisterhood. This is what we've always done, is work together. But we're so isolated and separated and secluded, that it becomes our own single solitary burden. And I don't want us to do it that way. I don't want to do it that way anymore. So let's call out on one another and say, how can you help me? How can you help my family? And I want to be one of the people that you can call on to help you facilitate that. Let's change the scenario. Let's take our power back and let's do it. So the call to action, visit the website, please subscribe, matanahjoy.com/subscribe. I won't spam you. I'll send little encouraging tidbits and free things and spreadsheets and whatever. If you feel like you want to talk to me one-on-one about your position and where you're trying to go, let's talk about that as well. And the Facebook group, The First Teachers Homeschool Collective, is for us to create a community for parents of color who feel isolated in this journey of homeschooling. It is not easy, but it is the best thing you'll ever decide to do. And especially with the collective that has your back and supports you, it can't get any better than that. So the last thing, like I said, for those of you who want to take the challenge of experimenting with a MLK homeschool day, I welcome you to join us in that. And I think maybe we'll get together in an intimate group, maybe on Zoom, or maybe we'll go live again tomorrow and collectively talk about what we did for MLK Day with our babies. For those of you who are already homeschooling like myself, you know, I want to have play dates virtually and in our areas. I want us to cultivate a sense of community so we don't feel isolated and alone, and that we don't feel like this beautiful act is impossible. So support me as I support our community. Like I said, share the video. I'm expecting to do more of these in the future. And let's just spread the word. This year is 2020. Perfect vision. Everything that we've been doing wrong will come to light. And not wrong in a, oh, you're a bad person, but where you can step it up and be more efficient and do things better. This is the season to do it. And so each of you have this wonderful purpose that the Most High, the Creator, the universe has put inside of you. Activate it this year. I am like so anti-live and so anti-social media to a certain degree, but this is where my avatar, my people are. This is where my village is that needs my support, and I need y'all's support. So with that being said, enjoy your Sunday. If you're watching this on the replay tomorrow, not too late. So if you want to celebrate with us, MLK tomorrow, all of our ancestors, I got some free materials. And I want you to play with the idea of homeschooling your child tomorrow, whatever the age. If they're older than my worksheets, you know, let's set up on YouTube and pull up some documentaries. United Black Books, is it unitedblackbooks.org? It's on my website under my freebies. An awesome resource. They have all types of documentaries and all types of books that you will not find on Amazon or your Barnes and Noble, so that you can challenge your high schooler as well. If there's any questions, I'm just going to check the chat to see what I'm so behind, and I'm not good at this, but eventually I will be. But let's see if there's any comments, any questions. Hey girl, hey, homeschooling, you know it. Amanda. I'll give thanks, Donna. Wonderful. Families in the building, so good to see y'all. Look forward to connecting. And Soraya, she is homeschooled all of her babies, and the last time I checked, she has a small village, a beautiful family, and I think about 5 or 6 children. And so if she can do it, you know, you can too. And when I see mothers with that many different curriculums or grade levels to instruct, you know, my concern teaching my one becomes so much smaller. So let's definitely support one another. Okay, so with that being said, it looks like we don't have any other questions. Again, matanahjoy.com. You know, the Facebook group just launched. You'll be one of the founding members. The First Teachers, Homeschool Collective. Us, parents of color, reclaiming our rights, our power as our children's first educators. So with that being said, much love, respect, get outside in nature, hug your babies. And, you know, just be you this 2020, and let's do things differently. It's time for something new to happen. Many blessings.